So welcome to episode 58 of the podcast. Today's special guest is Bridie. So we met at the SYN induction. As you all know, probably like media opportunities for young people to do podcasts, film, radio, and write articles is their niche, I guess. And yeah, how's it going, Bridie? Good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks. I'm super excited to be here. SYN's going pretty well so far. I got involved in a show called Represent about politics. Um, and yeah, I've just been having a really good time meeting new people. Yeah.
No, that's really good. So the Represent crew actually, reply to your email, unlike the sports talk who haven't said anything to me yet.
Oh, that's so sad. Oh my God. So I was on the show last week, actually. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And that aired on Friday. Yeah.
So was it like a kind of radio talk show vibe or more like
Yeah.
interview?
So if you've seen, don't expect you to have seen Insiders, but there's this show Insiders on the ABC on,
Yeah.
I think it's on Sunday mornings. It's a politics discussion show where they get all these journalists. So there's a panel of three journalists, and they usually interview a politician as well. And they basically just break down the issues of the week that happened in Australian and overseas politics. And so this is represented kind of the youth version of that, where we have a few, young people, uni and high school, and we just chat about four different things that have happened in the week. So half international and half local.
That is awesome, buddy. I might have to check it out after this, but yeah, definitely check on the SYN website, guys. I'm sure there's plenty of like politician discussion and like other topics as well. So give that a watch or listen. And we also like start off with hypotheticals like every week. And so since we had the GAT about roughly a week ago, there was no GAT phrase this year, which there always is. Like last year, it was GAT on the Vias. But what about 2022? Is there like any ideas that spring in mind for you, Brady?
Well, to be very honest, I think 2022 should kind of come up with a very collaborative catchphrase. I can see there being like a ridiculous amount of VC discussion space posts about it. But I think something like, honestly, GAT on the beers it was 2020, but I also feel like it could be 2022. I feel like it's just going to be a really good year. Like, we'll all be vaccinated. I mean, hopefully, and if you aren't vaccinated, get vaccinated.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. We'll be going to concerts. I've booked to go to a Lord concert. I'm super excited.
Really?
Yeah. So just going to be a good year. I can feel it.
Similar. So I booked for a Kid Laroi concert. So, well,
I saw he was coming.
yeah, I don't know. When's Lord? Is it early next year?
Lords, yeah, March.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. So hopefully we've got like the vaccination passes and all that cleared by then.
I was kind of expecting you to say Tyler the Creator, because I feel like everyone I know is going to Tyler the Creator.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's
or
pretty
like Dua
underrated.
Lipa.
Oh, Dua Lipa, yeah.
Mm.
So that'll be pretty interesting, actually. I remember that Lord song. I think it was was it Royals? That was the first one I've ever heard of her, and it was hyped
Yeah,
up
in like
pretty much.
2012 or something.
Yeah,
That like I listened to that recently. I was like, wow, it's actually a really good song. And she was like 16 when she put it out. Like, why
really.
am I not putting out like chart topping songs? I'm 16.
Yeah, I was considering doing like rap battles with a few people, but that didn't end up going well. So my music career is
I
kind of
reckon you could have killed it.
halted. Yeah, maybe in a few years' time. We'll have to wait and see. But and touching on the GAT as well, obviously it's a 3-hour assessment with like 70 multiple choice questions and 2 essays. So how would you evaluate your performance, Brady?
Oh my God, this feels like I'm writing a practice exam, evaluate the extent to which you did well on the GAT. I don't think I smashed it out of the park by any means. I didn't find most of the multiple choice too bad. There were a few maths ones in there that really threw me, but I
Garbage
smashed
one.
through the essays. Oh my God, the garbage and the toilet paper. What the
Oh
hell is
yeah,
this man doing with 400 rolls of toilet paper?
I know. Yeah,
It's insane. But I mean, I felt so ridiculous doing the writing tasks. One of them I basically just treated like sort of like a less formal philosophy essay and just absolutely rubbish. That essay was rubbish. But it's okay because it's the gap. And then the other one, the time one, what was I thinking? I wrote a story as if I was time, and I was going through time being like, oh my God, wealth inequality, wealth distribution. Like, what was that?
Yeah, what about the time though? Made me kind of question my life decisions because like you had the scale of like the average 82-year-old like person and what they
Mm-hmm.
do. So that was
Mm-hmm.
pretty
I
interesting.
bet, like, I was like, wow, I really just should not be spending so much time sleeping. Why don't I just get up and do things
Yeah.
and take 5 hours sleep a night instead of 9? But I mean, that never goes well.
No, I tried a 5 a.m. wake up a few weeks ago
Oh my
and
God.
it worked for the first 3 days. Then I just got back into my old routine. So like
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty hard. But I mean, some people have achieved lots of stuff with it, like such as Kobe
That's
Bryant.
so
So
true.
I have
Oh
to
my
give that a go
God.
later.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
actually does make me feel like maybe I should actually do it because he was
Yeah.
pretty successful.
Maybe I might try it out first week of year 12, and then if it like becomes a
Oh
habit, then
God.
that'd be like how many more hours study or something.
That's true, but also
So
why?
yeah,
Like, I could maybe
that's
in the
true.
summer holidays, like I have a lot of family in Queensland. So maybe if we go to Queensland and I'm like, yes, wake you up at 5, except I mean, they don't have daylight saving. So, I mean, that throws me off every time. It's like, which way is the clock going when you're flying up, flying down? But I mean,
Yeah.
if we get to go up to Queensland, I would be very lucky. And I would get up earlier so that I could go to the beach like 5 times a day. I love the beach and I really miss it when we're in lockdown.
And you're a very good swimmer, which we'll touch on. I can't say the same, but obviously, obviously we're both in year 11, Bridie, and we've got 3 4s. You're similar to my good mate Tommy. You're doing legal and global double. So can you tell me how that's going so far? I guess exams are fast approaching.
Yeah, well, my legal exam is a month away. Well, actually, it was a month yesterday. So I'm not having a great time, not feeling great about legal. It's so much more content than global, and I don't enjoy it as much. So I don't want to study it. I actually have it right in front of me. Um,
Oh,
I was doing it before
it's
I got on
crazy.
this Zoom. But global, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like my teacher is so good. He gave us so many practice exams. My legal teacher is so bad. Maybe I'm going to get sued for defamation, but he was actually the worst.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this man, he's like, I used to be a lawyer and now I'm going to impart all of my knowledge about the law onto you. I'm like, no, please, please teach me the study design. And now apparently he told the other legal class to like not bother coming in because in between now and the exam. I was like, are you actually joking? Like, this is literally the most important time of the year, and you're saying don't come into school? What?
Yeah, I feel like Brady, this guy is like all about teaching the depths of like actual legal stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but not the actual content covered in the study design. So
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
just extraordinary. You got too much
Yeah,
airtime already, but anyway, I believe all your subjects are humanities based. So talk us through the decisions
that's
around
true.
that, and like massive respect because like VC, it's dependent on your interests and setting yourself up for the future.
Yeah, well, so I started this year with very different subject load than what I'm doing now. So I started with Inglang, Chem, Methods, Global, Legal, and French.
Very
And
tough.
it's yes, since then has changed to lit, French, history, Revs next year, global, legal, and philosophy. So I was really hating chem and methods in particular, and I actually switched from Inglang to lit during orientation because I was like, I actually don't like Inglang that much. I don't know why I chose it. Um, but I was really hating chem in particular and methods. And so I just kind of thought, why should I do this? Like, why should I sit through this for a year um, when I could change and do something that I really like? And humanities has always been something I'm interested in. I think what kind of happened was maybe this is a little deep, but I think the women in STEM kind of, not a complex, but that's what I'm going to refer to it for the sake of this, got very, very ingrained in me. And was just very much held up as what you should be and what you should be aiming to be. Whereas actually that's not true. Like, you don't have to be a woman in STEM to have a valid like subject selection, have a valid career path and uni degree. And people in humanities can make just as much of a difference as people in STEM. So that kind of realization that I had late last year really kind of changed the way I look at VCE in school.
That is very, very fair. And it's a shame ScoMo had to double the humanities cost for uni. I'm sure you've heard
God,
that.
you have
Oh,
no
yeah.
idea
Just
how mad I
borrowing
was
us like
about
crazy,
that.
yeah.
I know. Oh my God. I just saw that. I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
I guess that kind of gives us an added incentive to do well in humanities subjects, even at uni, because I'm presuming you want to do like something along the lines of like journalism and all that.
Yeah, I'm thinking journalism or politics, not decided yet.
And that's a good segue, obviously touching on politics, because you probably love humanities a lot more than me, but the Australian relations with other countries have been kind of soured with like the submarine deal with the US and UK. So the Chinese and French aren't too happy, but can you kind of give us your views on that, like political tensions and how that's sort of progressing, I guess, Bridie?
Yes, I totally can. So, a little bit of background on China, right? So they have the biggest military in the world and the second biggest military budget in the world with, I think it's 220 billion US dollars. Obviously second to the US, who has a ridiculously disproportionately large army and army budget. As we all probably know. And so what's happened is that Australia, the UK, and the US have teamed up to make this defense pact called AUKUS, which is a really bad name. Like, AUKUS
Like
is the
orca,
best
like
that you
the
could
animal.
come up. Yeah. It's like, is that the best you could do? Really?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what AUKUS has said is that we're going to give Australia nuclear submarines, not nuclear weapons, just nuclear powered submarines. But they're not going to be ready for another 20 years, like legitimately 20 years. It's just ridiculous. It's this very long-sighted ploy that angers China, who we really don't want to get into a fight with, angers France, who is a major, major diplomatic player, and who we also don't want to get into a fight with. And it basically says to China, oh, let's have a fight. But we don't have the stuff to have a fight. I mean, even in 20 years, we're not going to have the stuff to have a fight with China. But now we literally have nothing. There's not even a deal that's been drawn up for these submarines yet. And with regards to the French deal that was scrapped in order to make way for AUKUS, it's just ridiculous that Australia has been two-timing France for so many months. Like, there was this I think it was the G7 earlier this year, in Cornwall, there was a meeting with Joe Biden and Boris Johnson and Scott Morrison, and they all looked very, very awkward. And no one kind of knew why Boris Johnson had crashed Scott Morrison's first bilateral meeting, bilaterals like two countries, with Joe Biden. Like, everyone thought that was really, really weird. And so looking back now, it's obviously because they were talking about this AUKUS thing. So they've been planning it for that many months, but possibly more. Like, who knows? It's just a really bad move on the part of the government to anger China and anger France, who's just a huge player in the international arena. They're both huge players in the international arena, and they both have a ridiculous amount of power.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, I want to touch more like locally now, because I remember you said this, but there's apparently dramas with like Dan Andrews and a bit of like corruption, so talk to
Yeah,
that.
so IBAC is the Victorian Anti-Corruption Commission. The New South Wales one is ICAC, for reference. So IBAC is investigating, I believe it's branch stacking allegations in the Labor Party. I could be wrong, but they definitely were at one point. And actually just a couple of minutes ago, 15 or 20, a Victorian minister has resigned because he was found to have been branch stacking, which is basically where you make up fake members of your political party so that it looks like your branch has more members. And so he's just resigned. But Dan Andrews has been implicated in this investigation. Not implicated, actually, sorry, that's the wrong word to use. But he's been involved. So IBAC have said, we're investigating whether Daniel Andrews had a part in this branch stacking.
Oh, wow.
and investigation into the I believe firefighters unions involved. I actually don't know a huge amount about the investigation, but there's a lot of debate about how this reflects on Gladys having resigned just last week or 2 weeks ago, because she was being investigated by ICAC, New South Wales' anti-corruption body. And so Gladys was investigated. I actually did my Represent segment on this. Gladys was investigated because she was alleged to have given grants to the electorate of her then boyfriend, Darryl Maguire, who was an MP for Wagga Wagga. And so she was alleged to have given grants to him when she shouldn't have. So ICAC said it was a breach of public trust. And so she's being investigated, and in the 20 minutes after that was announced, she resigned. And Dan Andrews has not resigned yet. Obviously, both premiers are entitled to the presumption of innocence. Legal. And so neither of them have actually been proven to have done anything wrong yet. Dan Andrews, yeah, it's just, I don't feel qualified, and I don't feel like I know enough to say whether he should or shouldn't resign. But I think even if you're being accused or investigated for corruption, there's like that says that something has happened, and that says that maybe something is bad, and maybe you should be considering resignation. Because accountability, and also, actually, I'll just quickly add about accountability. Daniel Andrews has repeatedly criticised the federal government for their lack of accountability, which has been demonstrated. Christian Porter had a rape allegation against him from the 80s, which he strenuously denies, but did not resign. Only resigned from the ministry, not fully from Parliament, when it was found that an anonymous donor donated $1 million to his legal campaign in defamation against the ABC, which they then settled. It was estimated that his legal bills were in excess of like $1 million, which is just massive. And obviously he doesn't have that amount of money, so he couldn't pay it. So he had to get this blind trust, an anonymous donor, to donate the money, but he wouldn't say who it was. So he resigned from the ministry, but is still in Parliament. There are so many federal parliamentarians who have been accused of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, sexual assault, that are still there. And also corruption. I mean, not to mention corruption. Yeah. So, and Daniel Andrews has criticised that. And it just, if you're being investigated for corruption, what is that? And you're remaining there, what does that say about the validity of your criticisms? But anyway, yeah,
that's a good chat. And speaking about like corruption, I'm from this like smaller country called East Timor, and like, third world countries, they do a fair bit of corruption. Would that be like easier to kind of get away with compared to like the larger countries like Australia?
Well, I think it's difficult to say that, right? Because third world countries or developing countries are generally ones that have been colonized. So there are a lot of knock-on impacts from colonization, including environmental devastation, which is a really kind of underestimated factor. And there's just a lot of different factors in play than there are here. It's not necessarily easier to get away with, I would say, but there's because they're still economically developing, there's less investigatory bodies and things like that are able to actually look into it. So a very simplistic view might be like, yes, it's easier to get away with, but taking a wider view, there's a lot of different factors in play in developing countries.
Awesome. And speaking of humanities, we both like recently joined SYN, which gives everyone media opportunities for like young people. And they're pretty much based in the city, Swanston Street, RMIT. And what are your thoughts on like the SYN experience so far? I know we just touched on like IDs and media law and the shenanigans, but how's it going so far, Bridie?
Yeah, it's really good. I have really loved it so far. Everyone seems really nice. And yeah, obviously I joined Represent and hosted a segment in like my first week of being on it, which was crazy. I was really not feeling ready for that, but then I did it anyway.
Good job.
And went, all right. I just feel like an idiot. I finished up, like I back announced the song and then finished my segment saying, see you after the song. What am I seeing? I'm not seeing anyone. It's a radio show.
And what about like the potential of recording like in studio after lockdown? Like, what does that present?
Oh, I'm really excited. I would really love, I mean, I've never met any of these people in person. I've never met you in person.
True.
um, I would, yeah, I'm just excited to get in to see people. And I mean, the idea of lockdown ending is just really good. Like, I want to leave my house.
Yeah, hopefully the sports talk can reply to my email, but if that doesn't happen, I might have to be that like person joining represent who has like no idea what they're talking about, but just like,
Hell yeah.
you know, yeah, we have to wait and
Amazing.
see. Yeah, and let's go back to this issue that's kind of gone unnoticed over the past couple of years due to, as we know, Bridie, COVID's been a major player, but what about climate change? Because, ScoMo has done pretty much nothing to, I guess, stop it. It's going to affect the way, like our lives in the future because climate change is a huge issue and, mate, ScoMo's doing nothing, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's actually really interesting. So, obviously, we need drastic action on climate change in order to prevent heating. Everyone's abandoned the 1 degree target. It's now 1.5. It would be really great to limit global heating to 1.5 degrees since pre-industrial levels, from pre-industrial levels. There's the COP26 summit in November in Glasgow. We're actually expecting Scott Morrison, well, maybe expecting is not the right word, but Scott Morrison has been signalling that he's not going to go, which is really, really bad for Australia. We are already regarded as laggards in the field of climate. Fun fact, before the 2013 election, where Julia Gillard had just introduced the carbon tax and Tony Abbott politicised it, Australia was actually a leader in the field of clean energy.
Really?
Globally. And so because Tony Abbott politicised the carbon tax, we surrendered all that progress and we could be still a leader if it wasn't for the Liberal Party. And instead, places like China, who have just insane manufacturing capabilities, like have taken over. China and Germany in particular have taken over the clean energy field. For example, like China, this is a global case study, so just spouting a bit of what I wrote down today in my practice exam. In 2015, Greenpeace estimated that China installed the equivalent of one soccer field's worth of solar panels every hour in the year, like, which is just a huge amount. China's become an export powerhouse in green energy.
What?
Yeah, it's just crazy. So Scott Morrison should be doing more. Josh Frydenberg, so the treasurer, whose seat is Kooyong in Melbourne, which encompasses like Hawthorn, Camberwell, Kew. I'm not sure the exact boundaries, but that's the area. He's just kind of realised that there is a credible threat to his seat in Parliament because people in Hawthorn want and need climate commitments. So Josh Frydenberg has just started committing to net zero by 2050, which is just regarded as so far behind the times internationally. Yeah, exactly. 30 years away. Like the US, UK, everywhere else is committing to net zero by 2030 or massive cuts by 2030. Even in China, where they only economically developed in the 1970s and 80s, they're committing to having their emissions peak in 2030 and then have a steady decline from then on, which is massive because they only developed, 50 years ago, whereas the rest of, the developed world happened in the 1800s and things like that, right? So it's just, that's a massive commitment from China with over 1 billion in their population, while we are sitting here talking about 2050. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, buddy. And I guess we're the future, and we can create change. So do you want to quickly touch on, obviously you've hosted a few rallies with like Schools for Climate, etc. Do you want to give us a debrief on the plans in December, maybe, possibly?
Yeah, so, well, there's actually a strike. I'm not sure when this podcast is coming out, but there is it's called Strike School. It's happening this Friday on October 15th. We were going to have a week of action in Melbourne, but obviously that's not going to happen because we're in lockdown. So we're doing online. There's 3 Zooms throughout the day. One of them is an election-related Zoom, so calling your MPs and putting pressure on them to take climate action. One of them is a social Zoom. There'll be a performance, I believe, and I cannot remember what the third one is, but there is a third one. There's 3 Zooms throughout the day. Sign up for it if this comes out before
Comes out
Friday.
Wednesday, so definitely,
Okay,
guys,
amazing.
stuff
Sign
it
up
out.
for
Yeah.
it. Yes, so going to protests and signing petitions are some really effective and quite low demanding, like don't demand a lot from you. Yeah, so going to protests in particular, it allows you to join. You can go with friends and just have a good time. It allows you to demonstrate to the public and to the government that this is something that people care about. The more people go to a protest, the more notice it's taken in the media and in government. You know, in on September 25th in 2019,
Yeah,
there
that's
were
the one I went to.
300,000 people went on strike for climate in Australia alone, which was just a massive day, and it was really fun, as you can probably speak to, Jerry.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
I was just there to chant
Protest.
and yell on things.
No, I couldn't imagine that day. It was pretty crazy. Like the streets were pretty much filled in the city, and you just
Mm-hmm.
could tell everyone was united in like I guess stopping climate change and taking action. So hopefully, once
Exactly.
everyone's double vax, we can do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And just speaking on China, obviously you've been there a few times, and I endeavoured to go there one day. But can you talk us through how that's been and visiting the Great Wall? I believe it's pretty tough climb.
Yep. Yeah. So I went to China twice in 2015 and 2017 because I learnt Chinese at primary school, and it was like a bilingual program. So we did 2 days a week in Chinese. And then 3 days in English, obviously. And so my primary school had a sister school over there. And so when I was in year 5, we went over there and went to school with our like buddies. And so that's in Nanjing. And then we also went to Beijing on that trip, I believe. Yes, I think so. And then that was the trip we climbed the Great Wall. So the Great Wall is insane because there's so many different parts of it. Obviously, you know, it's so long. And we walked, I actually can't remember who organized it, but we went with a couple of other family friends that were also there from, you know, the same primary school. And we walked it, parts of it that were falling down, kind of decrepit and ruined almost. And the contrast between that and the areas that have been rebuilt for tourists is just crazy. Like, I mean, it was beautiful walking on the ruined ones, but you know, it was so good. I loved going to China. It was just like so different. I could speak Chinese, so that kind of helped, obviously. But yeah, people were all really lovely to me. And then we went in 2017, and I was in year 7 by that point. So I wasn't doing the sister school thing, but my brother was. And so I got to basically, I mean, hang out with my parents for a week, but which doesn't sound great, admittedly. But
China,
we were in China, so we just
yeah.
like went for a walk and, you know, went to different restaurants that Miles wouldn't have liked while he was at school. And we also went on a hike in Huangshan, which is in, I actually don't really know what kind of region it is, but it wasn't very far. It was on like a sleeper train, which was great. There's no sleepers in Australia. There should be. They are so fun. And we went on a 3-day hike in Huangshan that was just amazing. So beautiful. Yeah, it was just so good. I really loved going to China.
Seems beautiful. I'd love to head to China one day, and yeah, it's good to see you. Like, obviously, you've learnt Chinese over years, but I've learnt Italian over years until what, like year 10, and haven't been able to apply it yet, obviously. But hopefully, I can still remember a fair bit of Italian. But
oh yeah, I reckon it'll come back to you now that you've learnt it.
No, yeah, gotta practice it though. I'm guessing you practice your Chinese like every now and then.
No, well, I do French now, so
Oh yeah,
I
true.
kind of my Chinese, I think it would come back to me because I did it from prep till year 8, the end of year 8.
Yeah.
So it would come back, but I just haven't been doing it. My Chinese teacher would murder me if I ever saw her again. They were crazy, actually.
What about the French? Like, how's that going?
I really like French. I actually wasn't too sure about it because I changed schools in year 9. And so, like, my new school, well, I go to McRob now and they don't offer Chinese. And so I had to choose a different language. I had to choose German, Indonesian, Japanese, or French. And I kind of figured I would do French, not really knowing a reason for it.
Yeah.
And then I actually really liked it. I picked it up much more quickly than I expected. And I was like, oh, actually, maybe I'll continue. And now here I am.
No, that's awesome. I should have done Italian in VC, but like, oh, it's so hard with the panels and like the
Yeah.
dedication that goes towards it. So maybe down the
Yeah.
line.
I have a friend who's doing Italian, but she's dropping it next year as well. So it doesn't really matter.
Obviously, with podcasts, we call it a sports podcast, but it's so much more than that. Similar to Ella, who we had on last week, you played soccer for a year, I believe. So how'd you find that?
Yeah, well, it technically was not a year. It was actually just for a sports exchange that I did with school. So we have an exchange with Adelaide High that we do. And so I was on the soccer team. Yes, I was on the soccer team for that, which was good. I was on the soccer team for Adelaide, which was really fun. I hadn't played it for ages, like really ages, but it just kind of came back to me, as I'm sure Chinese would, linking back. But yeah, it was really fun. I really enjoyed playing soccer, kind of more than I thought I would, because when you watch it, admittedly, it is quite boring. But then playing it, it's really, really good fun, actually.
I mean, soccer is fun to watch for me, but I get how people find it boring, but some people also find like...
Yeah, well, actually, I say that, but also like during the Olympics, like I watched so many.
And what about swimming? Like, let's dive into that. Obviously, you're very good at your swimming, a lot better than me. I literally cannot save myself if I were to get thrown in like anything to do with water. So, talk me through that.
Yeah, well, I love swimming. I actually did it for years. I've stopped swimming with a club now for a whole load of reasons, but also the pools are closed. So
Yeah.
I was kind of forced to stop at the start of 2020 for obvious reasons. I actually have crazy memories and a couple of videos on my phone of the last night before the pools closed.
Really?
When I did my last training session, and then like it was empty. I was walking out with a friend, no masks, no nothing. It was just really, really empty, really quiet, super, super weird. And like looking back on that, like that was insane. Like no one knew what was going to happen, and here I am 18 months later going, what the hell has just happened? But yeah, I swam for so many years, and I've always been into it. I wasn't hugely competitive. I just kind of wasn't really into it, but like
Yeah.
I love the training and I love going to the beach and stuff. And I feel like swimming, it gave me a real sense of like discipline that I didn't get from school. I don't really know why I didn't get it from school. Maybe that says something about my professional habits. But yeah, I loved swimming. It was, you know, you'd show up 3 or 4 times a week and train and do dry land, and I got really fit by the end of it. I was training several times a week and doing like gym sessions as well. It was really good. But yeah, I really love swimming. I feel like I've said that about 5 times, but it's true.
No, that's awesome. And doesn't swimming give you an incentive to wake up early? Because like, aren't training sessions like before school and all that?
Yeah, well, I actually hated before school training, like with a oh my God, actually the worst. I did most of the after school ones, but I know a friend who would he would do a double. He would do sometimes he would do Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. I had a friend who did that for like 7 years straight. I had another friend actually did this a couple of times where you would do one in the morning, say on Thursday morning, and then do Thursday afternoon as well. Crazy. So hard, but like really fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I run quite a fair bit, so I try to do double runs, but like you're so tired afterwards, so it's more like just for one run a day is good enough. But yeah, it's good for dedication from some people. Yeah. Let's have some fun in the podcast now. I know we dived into politics and other topics, but I remember, I think it was last week when we were recording our segment, but we're talking about like music and like songs from the past, guilty pleasures. Are there any songs like from the past that are like kind of guilty pleasures, I guess, or your favorite songs?
Well, I'm a big this might turn off some people, but I'm a big Taylor Swift fan.
It's not bad.
Yes, I love that girl. She's been like putting out music for so many years now. Like when I look back, I'm like, I was in year four listening to 1989. Like, what the hell?
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
So that's one of my kind of that's my kind of guilty pleasure. I also am really loving Fleetwood Mac at the moment. Just very cool vibes, really. There's kind of no other way to explain it. Yeah, they would be my kind of artist recs at the moment.
Yeah, it's pretty like Fleetwood Mac and Taylor Swift are like two very different kind of artists, but yeah. What about your favorite all time Taylor Swift song? What's that?
All time, honestly, I don't know. I kind of think about this a lot, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe it's Taylor, maybe it's not though, because like I listen to so many things. Like my Spotify is just the craziest mishmash of different artists. So it really like I really struggle to pick a favorite. What
Definitely
about
have
you? I'm
to, yeah.
curious.
Oh, like, well, give me a like kind of genre, like just all time.
Okay. What about like rock?
Oh yeah, rock is pretty straightforward. Wonderwall's my favorite, like one of my favorite songs. Yeah.
That's so funny. I see
Oh.
all these TikToks where people are like, "Hey, can I play you a song?" And they put
Yeah.
the capo on their guitar on too. I'm like, "Oh my god, I know what this is gonna be."
That's literally me on guitar. The only thing I can play on guitar is Wonderwall.
Hell yes.
Yeah. And I reckon for me, like Taylor Swift, the song, what song with the heartbeat? Like the beat's like a heartbeat kind of. I think it's
Oh,
Wildest
Wildest
Dreams, maybe.
Dreams.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of motivational in some way, shape, or form. So I guess
Yeah,
that's
100%.
two from me. Oh yeah, and just quickly that you, I'm never gonna forget Youth now because I remember we chucked it on the back record or whatever, but then I had to take it out because it was copyright, which I learnt from the media laws. So that was pretty interesting in itself, you know. Yeah.
Should have just let us play it.
And speaking of like funny moments, are there any funny stories? Because the money segment is funny stories. Either from your schooling days, your, swimming you want to share, buddy?
Yes. So actually, it's not from my swimming. It's from
Yeah.
last night and a couple of nights ago.
Oh wow.
So I live really close to the Yarra, which means that there are a lot of possums around us. And
Oh,
so
I've got
we
a
have
possum story. Yeah, you go first.
a gum tree in our backyard. We have a few trees in our backyard. My dad really
Yeah.
loves native trees, so he's always planting different things. But the possums are killing our trees. Like they're
Oh,
actually
what?
bare. There's no leaves, there's no nothing. And so we think they live in like my neighbor's yard, but she's really old, and so we don't want to say anything. And we also think
Yeah.
our other neighbors think that they live in their like roller door. So it's
Oh
just a
yeah,
crazy
it's
possum,
crazy.
bloody possum heaven. And they've got these beautiful trees that are wanting to grow, but they can't because the possums are eating all the little baby leaves. Anyway, my mum's decided that we're going on a full, all out war against possums. It's like the emu war, except against possums, but we're definitely going to lose. So, what she does every night is she fills these buckets with water and then gets, do you know those water pistols that are like, they're
Oh yeah,
just cylinders and you pull them
yeah,
out
yeah,
and you go, woo. Yeah,
yeah.
we've got two of those and she pulls them out and then she's like, oh, I can see one in the tree. And then she just sprays this and then she sprays the bloody possum until it runs away
Oh.
or goes too high for her to reach. It's so funny. And like I was doing it last night, like it's really like every night, just really funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. And what about like how big of a possums, buddy? Are they like just pretty
There's
small or
actually two
big ones?
there's two different types. So there's brush tails. There's one brush
Yeah.
tail we think, which is really big. Like it's actually like really decent sized. That bloody thing, I actually got it the other night. I sprayed it. It was sitting on the fence. I was like, totally that thing. But there are also
Bullseye.
ringtails, which are quite small, really cute, with their little circle tail. I feel really bad, but like it is just water; it's not going to hurt them. So that's how I justify it.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned something new as well because I talk about my funny story. I think episode two, but we're on year seven camp. I think the cabins you always have to like open a door because it's always locked before you get in or something. But there was a possum standing in front of a door. We're coming back from dinner, and it was like probably a brush tail, like you said. So it was probably like about a meter tall, maybe, or bit yeah, it's pretty massive. But we're like,
That's massive. That's probably not a possum. That's like a wallaby or
oh
something.
nah, I felt like it was a possum, but we're like 5 foot nothing, obviously, because we're little kids, and yeah, it was pretty much the same size, and we just all like shat ourselves, and yeah, it's
Wow, that's
hilarious.
crazy.
Yeah, oh, I can't imagine that, but yeah, it'd be amazing to check out a brush tail sometime, see how I compare to it
Yeah. Oh
now.
my God. I've never heard that happen to anyone before.
Enough said about possums. What about like? Because I know every guest so far has struggled with this question, but like it's kind of abstract, as you know. But like, what's the best piece of advice someone has ever given you?
I would probably say just have a good time rather than like trying to be like the best at everything. I think it's really hard to, for some people, to prioritize having just kind of chilling out rather than like always studying. But like I would rather have a good time in my last few weeks of year 11 and last couple of years of high
That's
school
true.
than like get a 40 rather than get a 38 or a 35 or whatever. And like especially this year, it's like, well, these are my two subjects that if I do badly, I can just do well. They can be on my bottom two and it'll be fine. So it's like just have a good time rather than kind of prioritize just staying in studying all the time, which is pretty boring.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, maybe
Obviously,
not
yeah.
but it's worked so far.
No, having fun is also important because I know we're so like Zoom fatigued, obviously with school and stuff. So
Mm.
it's good like people finding ways to entertain themselves, such as learning Wonderwall on the guitar. Or like, I'm
Yeah.
sure you've like done some cool stuff during lockdown as well, type
Awesome
stuff as
aim
well.
practice.
Yeah,
When we get this summer in the pools with those water pistols, people are not going to know what hit them. I'm going to be just straight at them.
yeah, that's not gonna be good if I was trying to learn my freestyle strokes and then that like
Oh, that's
still
true.
nothing. And also let's diverge into like books and movies. So obviously I've been reading quite a fair bit. Not to the level of Ella last week. She's read 40 books so far this year. I've read like 13. But what about yourself? Are there any books or movies you recommend for the listeners?
Oh, well, there are so many. A lot of people have started keeping count of the amount of books they've read, and I haven't. I kind
Yeah,
of
I've
feel like
started
I
doing it
should now.
now. Yeah,
Like
good reads.
FOMO, FOMO, everyone. I think movies. I mean, I love a guilty pleasure sort of comfort movie.
Yeah.
Right now, that's Mamma Mia and Mamma Mia too. I'm a bit of a sucker for a musical sometimes. Not all of them, admittedly, but Mamma Mia, I love. Actually, I'm not a sucker for a musical. I'm just a sucker for ABBA. I really love ABBA.
Oh, so what are your thoughts on the album?
Well, I'm really excited for it to come out. I love the singles. It's crazy that it's been like 40 years and they're just back and they sound like ABBA. Like I was really excited, but I was like, oh God, they're just going to sound like they're old and boring. But no, they're actually really good. I'm just trying to get a look at my pile of books to see what I've read. Actually, I've read The Yield by Tara June Winch,
Yeah.
which is really good. I actually did it for school, which kind of takes away from how good it was, but
Yeah.
that was a really, really good book. It's the kind of plot is, I know this because I've written an essay on it. The plot is basically it's sort of three people's perspectives. It's Tara June Winch is First Nations, so she's writing this story about this girl called August, whose grandpa Albert has just died. I think, yeah, he's just died. And so it kind of deals with language and reclaiming language after like colonization, as well as dealing with sort of themes of family and loss, obviously. And it's super well written. It's really like poetic almost, and it's kind of told in three different formats, with August's kind of story told traditionally as a story. Albert, who's the grandfather who's died, he wrote like a dictionary of the words of the language of like his First Nations language that he spoke obviously before he died. So it's like interspersed with sort of dictionary entries, and there's also from this reverend who
Ooh.
basically is a colonizer and who kind of writes about how he's not comfortable with what they're doing, but is still like in the mission, but it's still doing it. Yeah, it's a really good book. Would recommend 100%.
Awesome recommendations, and make sure you check it out, folks. I believe it's called The Yield, so yeah, something I might suss it out as well. But seems poetic, yeah, like you said. So I want to try that out as well. Yeah, and just touching on just quickly, Mamma Mia. Obviously that song by
I feel
ABBA.
like
I
I'm really
remember.
exposing
Yeah.
myself in this podcast.
No, I'm gonna expose myself again as well because in primary school we used to like have obviously bells, yeah, but in our high school we don't have any bells. It's just like self-centered, but yeah, it's
Oh, I hate
interesting
that.
anyway. No, it's amazing, but anyway,
Oh, okay.
um, our bell used to be like Mamma Mia, so like every time like if a bell rang, we're like, here we go again, you know?
That is so fun.
Yeah.
I
Oh
love that.
god.
I could probably beat that. My primary school bell was Shakira. It was like this
Waka
time for
waka.
Africa.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy.
It was nuts. It was really, really weird. We're going to class to the tune of Shakira.
Yeah, like, but we weren't old enough. Imagine it was 2010 though, like, when
Mm-hmm.
the World Cup was. But um, I guess yeah, it's just a classic. So enough said about music as well. Got a few more for you, Bridie. Which is this
Mm-hmm.
segment's called Quick Hands. So 5 quick questions. Firstly, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Beautiful. I'll say the same. English or maths?
English all the way. I
Oh,
think
what?
everyone probably could have guessed my answer to that.
Yeah, I was English most of this year, but I've always loved my maths until like year 10ish when methods came in. But I mean, I guess English for now. What's your favorite subject?
Global politics. I love it. I don't know. It's just like it's really what it's like my jam. This is just it speaks to me.
Yeah,
Bit nerdy, but yeah, favorite definitely.
no, I get it. It's kind of like media's my jam. Like, there's never
Hmm.
a dull moment when you're in like global media for us two. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good one. Obviously, favorite place to visit in Melbourne for me is probably I've got a fair few, but Princess Park. I just get my runs done there for now. But what about yourself?
Wow, this is a good one. I love St Kilda Beach, and I also love Yarrabend Park, and I think Edinburgh Gardens is really nice too.
Oh yeah, Edinburgh Gardens. I might have to suss it out. I say suss it out too much, but I think that's down Fitzroy Way. Yeah, because I had
Yeah,
Isaac on the
yeah,
other week. Yeah, so
yeah,
I
super
might
nice.
have to suss it out during one of my runs. But it's good for
Definitely.
like Dan Andrews says picnics are important. So yeah,
It's
it's probably
chock
good down
full.
there.
If you go
Yeah,
like 10 a.m. midday,
yeah.
so full of picnickers.
Awesome. Well, I might have to check it out. And are you close to the tan as well? Because that's crazy for running and just botanical
Oh,
gardens is a
how did I
spectacle.
forget the
Yeah,
Botanic Gardens? I love the Botanic Gardens.
yeah, it's a classic. Yeah, that's not quick hands. But anyway, morning and night person, Brady.
Um, okay, I used to say morning,
Yeah,
but
when
now
swimming was
I
still
get
on.
really tired in the mornings. So, but I also hate going to bed late. So you know what? I'm gonna say morning, but only because I really don't like going to bed late.
I can totally relate. I'd say morning as well because if I go to bed at let's say 11's not late, but if I go to bed at 11, I wake up at 7:30 every day. So then that extra hour's gone
Wow.
already. Like even if I don't
Yeah.
set an alarm, I wake up at 7:30. So like how am I meant to you know sleep in? And the final real question is like obviously you're a tea drinker. So am I. I've been like having green tea every now and then. Probably not as often as you, but how would you compare tea drinking compared to coffee? Because when I had that double shot espresso, I was bloody dying.
Yeah, no, I feel you. When I had an iced coffee when I went to Sydney way earlier this year, sadly, I wouldn't want to be there right now. I just kind of, I felt so weird the rest of the day. I really did not like it. But I love my tea, even caffeinated tea. Like, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was that one coffee. It's a bit funky, but I have no
Yeah.
idea. Um, yeah, just tea over coffee any day.
That's awesome. Like, what type of tea? Because I like my Lipton iced tea every now and then, my green tea, and my. I had bubble tea on my birthday, and oh mate, the what's it called, the bubbles or whatever. I hated it for some reason.
Oh,
So
really? I
yeah, it's
love
just
bubble
weird.
tea. Maybe that's a very white thing of me to say, but I do really like my bubble tea. Um, I think my favorite at the moment is probably chai. I don't have very authentic chai or anything, but I really do love the sort of spices. But also, it's coming into summer. So I'm feeling like mint tea, very summer vibes. Yeah, I'd probably say mint tea for the moment. But there are so many different like types of tea. Like I actually had this sort where it was you could put the tea bag into cold water and it would just make like iced tea, which
Oh
I've never
yeah,
had before.
yeah,
And that was like I think it was like peach flavored, and that was really, really good. So I reckon this might be the summer of like peach iced tea.
yeah. I was trying out different tea flavors, but I was having you know that fruit called pomegranate or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that infusion. Just it wasn't the right like texture. It was too sweet. I reckon. Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
I guess we might have to catch up for chai latte Edinburgh Gardens maybe. Apparently,
Oh,
Isaac said
sounds
there's good like tea down there maybe, or like there's this store I
yeah.
can't
Well,
remember what
it's
it's
super
called, but
close
yeah.
to I think St George's Road, maybe. Actually, that might be wrong. It's super close to A Street, where there is definitely loads of cafes.
Yeah, for sure. I can't remember what he said, but it might have been like a takeout place, but it's like really good. So I need to check it out because it's not far from, as you know, Princess Park, because that's where I run, and it's like yeah, similar.
Yeah, I think so.
And to finish off, Bridie, like what's next for you? As we always ask in 2021 and beyond, because like how are we in October right now? You know, like
Uh
heading to
huh.
year 12. So
Crazy.
top three goals.
Yeah. Okay. Top three. Finish the year. Exams coming. Honestly,
Yeah.
once exams are over, I'm just my brain just is going to check out. Like that's it. After 4:15, 15th of November, that's it. I think it's 14. Maybe it's the morning exam. I'd better check that. Yes, my goal will be get through the year and wanting desperately to travel over summer. If I don't get to travel, that'll be okay. We'll just have a really good time down in Vic. And I guess my goal for beyond would be, I don't know, just kind of get through year 12. Honestly, I feel like I'm just kind of like, get through this year, get through year 12, get through the summer. It's a bit boring, but like, I mean, it's the home stretch of this year. And then year 12, I think will be fun. So just, I guess my goal would just be like, have a good time for the last year of school.
No, that's fair. Obviously your big goal is for RMIT and everything with that. So yeah. And what's your graduation nickname gonna be? Like for your jumper? I presume you've
Oh
got
my
one.
God. People were asking me this week,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't know. I haven't actually thought about it. Probably like Goldie or something. I don't know. My last name's
Yeah. No,
Golding,
that's
so
fair.
like that kind of makes sense. But no one calls me that, so it's a bit weird. I don't know. I haven't
Mm.
decided yet.
I feel like my advice is go something like simplistic because I'm just gonna go with Jezza because
Mm.
that's what people call me, like Jez and friends, you know.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
yeah. Anyway, Brady, it's been a pleasure chatting all things like media, politics, because I feel like the
It's been
people
so
we've had
good.
on, it's been like sciencey and kind of not my niche. But yeah,
I'm
yeah,
always up to balance the sciences out.
exactly right. That's pretty much what humanities is, I guess, and I'm sure the listeners and myself have learnt a bit around politics, especially like the French, Chinese, Australia relations and beyond. So I guess maybe we'll catch up. Who knows? Edinburgh Gardens, SYN HQ, down the road.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.